Welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds, I'm Nerdarchist Dave. Today I'm joined by Wolfgang Baur of Kobold Press. And I think it's like an understatement as to who you are and what you've done, in the industry. You've been around for at least a minute,
Uh-huh.
and have worked on many and many of the things that I've enjoyed, coming up in the hobby.
Sure. Well, thanks. Yeah, no, I have been a role player for a very, very long time.
Yeah,
And
you're you're also like a genius too. Like you're a biochemist, and
yeah. That's a degree I really got to use exactly once writing a cyberpunk RPG. And since then, it's been like, yeah, it's helpful when I read the science news, but otherwise, I wish I had taken accounting or gotten a master's in business administration.
I don't know, but when I was reading your bio or your wiki, it makes
Oh,
you
yeah.
seem really really smart. I was like, ooh ah.
Well, it's sort of true. I'm well educated. I don't know if I'm smart. If I'd been really smart, you know, would have I would have jumped on the SRD in 2000 like Monty Cook did 5 years ahead of me. So
Well, I don't know if it was smarts or he just had another direction he wanted to go in, but
he's the guy who sort of invented open content publishing, right? Like the OGL, he grabbed it, Malhavoc Press ran with it, and I think he just embraced it and made it work. So, and it's 20 years ago now. Hard to
yeah,
believe.
Necromancer was really early as well.
Necromancer, they were smart. I think they have like a bunch of lawyers on the board at Necromancer. Like they're all
Yeah.
smart and they understood what the open gaming license meant before anybody else could figure out the legal. And so they published, what was that book? Like Tome of Horrors or
Was that their
something?
first one?
I want to say it was. Like they did
It,
a big book of monsters
it
with
was a long
Sword
time
and,
ago.
yeah, wasn't it with White Wolf? Oh God, I'm trying to remember products from 2000
Because
as
they have Tome of Horrors that they redid. They have Tome of Foes. I don't know if that's just the
right,
newer. I think Tome of Foes was just for 5e, but
right,
yeah, like they have a weird structure for their company.
yeah.
Because it's set up like an accounting firm or like a law firm. The
Oh,
way
they've got like
their board
board of
works.
directors and
Yeah,
partners, and here's my proxy. I'll be voting against this
yeah,
supplement.
yeah, yeah. And they probably do it all via holograms in darkness. But
Heads in jars is what it is.
yeah. So, how are things at Kobold Press during the apocalypse?
Things are surprisingly good at Kobold Press during the apocalypse, partly because we released a lot of our stuff on Roll 20 years ago. And we've always embraced sort of open content PDF stuff on drive-through, and because we have our own store, we can still sell direct. So like the implosion of the retail space hurt, but it didn't cripple us.
Yeah.
um,
How big was the con scene for you guys?
uh, I wish it was bigger than it was. Like there are a lot of companies that are good at the con scene, Monty Cook being one of them, or Green Ronin is very good at the con scene, or Paizo always has a huge presence at Gen Con. Um, but Kobold Press kind of stinks at it. Like we've never been good at the con. We show up at Gary Con or Gamehole or other shows, but we went to PAX Unplugged last year. We were so excited. We loved that show. We brought all our cool demos. We had a good time, but we're not good at it. We kind of show up, run around in panic the way kobolds do. 90% of our staff is wiped out, and then we start over next time.
Yeah. Well, that seems like a very Kobold thing to do. They're like the
Yes,
cockroach of the fantasy world.
we kind of are, right? As long as a few of us escape from any given convention, we can hatch enough minions for next time.
Well, I know I've seen Gnome at a few conventions for you guys.
Yes, he's been fantastic for us. He brings his fancy camera. He chats up people. He tells people that we're at the show by going on social media, which some of us are good at and some of us are not. And yeah, he's made it a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
he's been a big driver of trying to go to cons, and we were really just starting to get good at it. I think the PAX Unplugged presence was our first like, hey, we know what we're doing at a convention in a long time. But then the pandemic came along and we had to cancel. We didn't go to Gamma. We didn't go to any of the summer shows. And Gen Con, we have some events we're running, right? But it's not the same.
I also encountered you guys at Origins the first year I went,
Oh, yeah.
and Dan Dillon was running games for you guys as well as Steven.
Winter, maybe? No.
No, younger guy, much younger.
All right. Which other Steven are we talking about? It could be a number.
Also works with let's see, Playground Adventures, and BJ Hensley.
Oh,
I'm so embarrassed that I forgot his name.
right. Oh, it's bad. But yeah, we had a big crew at Origins. We ran like 60 tables.
Yeah, well, he had ran the game where it was like all those like giant titans, like frozen in time, and it was such an awesome game. It was so much fun. I hadn't played Pathfinder in years. At that point, it was he was running
Pathfinder game.
He was running the Pathfinder, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, all right, I'll brag on our convention stuff one way. Ben McFarland, year after year, any award-winning designer, Ben McFarland, has pulled together a team of people to do convention special adventures, right? And sometimes we sell them later as a print thing, but a lot of the time, those adventures are commissioned they're designed to work in a 4-hour slot. They're designed to work with a cool set of pre-gens. Hell, I wrote one with like 6 Kobold PCs, right? And my favorite part of that scenario is handing out the PCs, because I always ask, so who wants to play the wizard? Not who wants to play the Kobold wizard, right? Who wants to play the barbarian? Who wants to play the rogue? Who wants the cleric? And everybody gets, I tell them, put your character sheets face down. All right, flip them face up. And everybody reads like the race line, Kobold. And from then on, they either embrace it and lean into it, and we have a very silly good time, or somebody says, man, I didn't want to play some pipsqueak. I'm like, who do you think's running this game? Right?
Yeah, you totally missed something there. It was Stephen Rowe. For the record. Yeah.
Oh, he's amazing. He's such a great GM and a sharp designer for Pathfinder. I haven't heard from him in a little while, but I'm sure he's still doing good work.
Yeah. So, speaking of kobolds, though, have you played Kobolds Ate My Baby?
No, that game has been on my radar forever, and I really should pick it up. I hear it's fun.
I have not actually played it, but it's also on my radar. Ted's played it, and I know some of my friends have played it. And the publisher is actually kind of local to us. I think they're out of Philadelphia. So I've been meaning to connect with them. It's on my long list of to do.
Well, there's a little more time now to play things. I'm getting a little more board gaming, dice gaming, etc., family gaming in with the pandemic, because the kids aren't just heading out of the house to do Girl Scouts or friends stuff. But RPGs are tougher. It's all Zoom and Roll20 and Discord.
Yeah.
So I'm not as up on that.
I'm fairly certain evil masterminds around the world have linked up with Zoom in order to cause this.
The Zoom shareholders are thrilled. Everyone else?
Not so much.
Yeah.
So, Elfbait has a question for you. What are your favorite Kobold tricks and traps to use when GMing?
Oh, wow. There's a whole bunch of these in the Zobek Gazetteer. Kobold tricks and traps. Well, I think my favorites are sort of the stupid, you shouldn't pull that lever tricks.
Mm-hmm.
And it depends on the party whether they'll go along with this. But the ones that I remember in Zobek all depend on having a very narrow alley, because the Kobold ghetto in the city is, streets 3 feet wide and sort of almost tunneled over because they're so narrow. And Kobolds will leave out stuff that's basically bait for adventurers, right? Like a big gem encrusted skull, which of course has glyphs, explosive glyphs of warding on it, and don't touch that thing. It's too obvious. The other one I like is basically you're down in a narrow tunnel below us, single file. We're just going to stand up on the rooftops, big tall humans, and throw down flower pots. Flower pots and chamber pots, until you guys flee. And the moment they flee, of course, somebody pulls up it's the Hollywood movie thing. You pull up the wire, and everybody is knocked prone. That's when you send in the Kobold thugs. So I like traps that are basically 2 or 3 steps. Like, we throw stuff on you, we trip you, then we send in the big kobolds to beat you up. Because
the big kobolds.
Big kobold. Hey man, if you have looked in the creature codex, the Swobold is
hilarious.
That kobold works out, man. But yes. But I like them in little waves, right? Where nothing is going to kill the party. You're not down at the bottom of a pit separated from everything else. No, you're covered in filth and garbage, and then they set you on fire. That's kind of my favorite.
And then they set you on fire. This is for all the taverns PCs that you've burned down.
Yes. Oh my God. Taverns have a short shelf life in most campaigns, right? Like, everybody wants a brawl. Somebody knocks over a candle. Next thing you know.
Well, in 5e, if you have a wild sorcerer, then you may not need someone to knock over a candle.
No,
you just need a bad roll on that wild table, which did happen in one of our games. The wild mage sorcerer was standing in front of the actual bar, and they rolled the fireball. So the more flammable stuff went up.
Yes, and it was that Wile E. Coyote look on every adventurer's face, right? They're all sort of blackened. Cajun blackened adventurer fireball damage.
I do love me some chaos magic for sure.
It's a blast. We actually have a deep magic book coming out, and there's a whole chapter on chaos magic, and it's fun. I don't like playing chaos sorcerers as a player, but I love them as a game master, right? If I'm running a group with a chaos mage in it, wild magic is going to make my job easier.
The deep magic stuff was great. I know me and Ted had looked at, I want to say all of it. I think we did all of it.
Maybe
Ted had found them on RPG Drive-Thru, and was fairly excited about it. He's like, "Hey, you want to talk about these?" And I mean, we don't review a ton of stuff, but they were short enough that where we could read one and then kind of go through it and talk about it. It wasn't bad at all. Because we'll get people that are like, "Hey, do you want to review my 400-page book?" And I'm like, "Not really."
No.
With all my free time.
I know. And the thing about a 400-page book is it's probably juicy and meaty, but it's going to take you a long time to review. Some of the professional reviewers, I don't know how they get through like 2 books a day. Well, if they're 15-page books, sure. But they got to commit a week for a 400-page book.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun when 5e first came out, and we were just kind of doing like these micro dives, but a lot of them. Yeah. So it's like, we're going to do a bunch of videos, and we would just read it as we went along, and it was kind of easy to do it. But big chunks like that's hard, and like you said, I don't know how the big reviewers do it, because it's just a lot of material to get through, and for the most part, RPG stuff is not generally exciting to read when you're talking about rules, like core books.
Well, especially, I mean, something like a player's handbook is exciting for the class you want to play and all the options for that class, and maybe it's exciting when you're trying to think of a concept, right? You're just browsing.
Yeah.
But cover to cover is a different animal.
It's like reading stereo instructions.
I know. Although with the deep magic book, right? So it's like 700 spells, and you can just look at the spell list for whatever, ranger, and a bunch of them are sorted by theme, like chaos magic or dragon magic or elemental or whatever.
Or rings.
Ring magic. Oh yes, such a Kobold Press thing.
That one
You know
got me.
that's
That one got me. I was like expecting something completely different.
Oh, well, Dan Dillon wrote it,
Yeah.
right? And I told him this when he got the assignment. I said, "This is the Ring of the Nibelungen, right? This is the old Germanic Norse saga of dwarves forge power into rings. Don't make it Lord of the Rings. Make it more like dwarves crafting stuff."
Does
And
that one have the ring golem in it?
it does. It
Yeah,
has
yeah.
that animated ring golem, which I think we picked up in Creature Codex or Tomo Beast 2, so it's available elsewhere. Um, but yeah, I mean, servants like that are pretty freaking cool. And I don't know, I like ring magic. I like ring mages. They're all over my Midgard campaign. When you meet a dwarf band, if they're if they're power players, if they're a dwarven mercenary bunch with oomph, they've got a ring mage with them, and you watch out for that guy.
All in all, that was a very good series. There was a bunch of them, and I must say, of them all, there was only like one that we really didn't care for that much. But
Yeah,
considering how many there are, I
there's
mean,
20 of them,
yeah,
and we collected the set, right?
yeah.
So I can't believe you hit them all, but we love doing that series. And then, of course, in the
The art was
Kickstarter,
so good too.
oh man, wait till you see the new art. There's a bunch more. We picked up all the good art
Yeah,
and threw away one or two pieces we didn't like and commissioned a bunch more. Anyway, so it's going to be a hardcover in about a month. And yeah.
do you do the art directing, or you have someone else do it?
Oh, I wish I could do the art directing because I like the art. I like
Yeah,
writing art briefs. And I like working with the artists in the sketches, but it's a lot of time, and it's not really something I have any training or talent in. No, Mark Radel is actually he's out in Pennsylvania. He's sort of your way. Um, he's the art director and has been for many years. And when he came on board, things went from you're doing pretty good for an amateur to hey, this is somebody who knows how to do everything, covers, layout, find the right artist for the right project. He's just got such an eye
yeah.
for it.
I feel you so hard there because, for the book that we just did, and some of the stuff we do, I do all the art directing, and oh my god, I hate that job so much. Like I love it. It's a love hate, right? I
Yeah,
love seeing the stuff come in, but I hate finding the artists. I hate
right,
because you take all these artists and you're like weighing them and judging them against each other, and it just
right.
makes me feel terrible.
Well, I don't feel terrible about it. I often, the problem I would have is, well, here's my budget, right?
Yeah,
And it's like, well, here are the artists who fit in my budget. Okay, good. But the artist I really want is, the guy who does the Overwatch cover, right? Like
yeah,
you can see the wild level of difference between the guys who are doing novel covers for New York Times bestsellers or the next book from Wizards of the Coast, right? It's like, um, that's amazing. I want that. And then you
yeah.
find out, well, you don't have the budget for that. So what hurt early on in my days, my thankfully brief days as an art director was I'd like to afford X, but I can't. So let's find someone who's going to grow into that.
Was that pre Kickstarter?
Which one?
When you
The
when
oh
you when
my
you
my art directing?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was. How did I get sucked into it? It was pre Kickstarter. The company's been around for 14 years. Kobold Press started in 2006. So it was pre Kickstarter, but we were always a crowd-funded operation. It's just doing crowdfunding without the Kickstarter platform turns out to be really hard. We actually won the Diana Jones Award for a business model,
Uh,
the patron model of publishing, which I don't know. I mean, it was sort of in the air at that time, and a few years later, Kickstarter came along and changed the industry.
yeah, it's made it so much easier because I feel like when we first started, Kickstarter was new, and that was in
Yeah.
like 2014.
Hmm.
And we had been looking at that early. We looked at like Patreon early, and all these
Right.
different things that it makes it so much easier to be a creator.
Right.
compared to when you got started doing it. It was
Yeah.
definitely much more difficult. I imagine you'd had to do more like internet marketing style crowdfunding, where it's more like pre-sales and you know
I mean, it was, yeah, there was no Facebook. There was no, yeah, it was harder. But the projects reflect that, right? Like all
yeah.
the art for the first 5 years was black and white art. Because not only could we not afford color art, we couldn't afford color printing either.
Oh yeah.
Um, so, yeah, it changed things tremendously. But um, I'm still proud of the books I art directed.
As
Some
you
of
should
them,
be, right? We
you
couldn't get the
know,
books. We couldn't get the books we get today out of Kobold Press without those books coming first.
oh gosh, yeah, the learning curve was something else because I thought I knew how to put together a project because I've been in the editorial trenches, right? Like I worked at Wizards of the Coast, and I worked at TSR, and I put together books and magazines, but I didn't realize just how convoluted and difficult it could be to get through
Yeah, I
physical
I'm
production.
I'm learning. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, people can give you advice and hints, and if you ever
Uh,
have a question, I'm happy to help. But some of it is just you got to learn it by screwing it up.
it's funny. We've gotten these different runs of proofs to approve, and I find
Yes.
it so nerve wracking. Like I'm like, oh man, my eyes aren't that great. Looking at this stuff, I'm like, I'm gonna miss something for sure.
Uh, the first time I got a set of round of printers proofs, I'm like, this is great, but what do I do? Over time, I'll give you a hint right now. If you could possibly do all your proofing, like 3 rounds of proofing before you send it to the printer, you'll feel a lot more confident when the printer's proofs come
Yeah.
in,
Well,
right?
I feel like that we kind of did, but so we have Doug that's in house is great, and he has crawled over that stuff so much, and then
Yes,
afterwards we sent it out to a proofreader,
right.
which
Oh,
is not cheap, but worth it, I think.
I think a good proofreader is worth that money because, like,
Yeah.
sometimes fans will say, "I'll proofread it for free," and I'm like, "Well, thank you, but you'll only catch 1/10 of what a pro will,
Yeah.
and it's all a little sketchy. I'd rather pay the professional than make my fans do the work, right? Like that's not what most of them are coming to the book for. There's
Well,
always a
that's like the weirdness of the RPG industry too, right?
yeah,
And that's a double edged sword where it's like it's nice that fans want to get in there and help and they're willing to do it,
yeah,
but I feel like on the other end of that is this industry has kind of been kept down when it comes to rates and being
yeah,
able to pay people what they deserve,
right,
and because like we're all creators, right? If you run games, you're a creator, and you're like,
yes.
well, I can do that, which one you can't. Um, you know,
Or you can really badly. Like it's a
yeah,
learning curve.
yeah. There's a difference between being a professional designer and an amateur who does it for fun.
Yes.
There's
And I would
more
never
elements to it.
discourage someone from doing it for fun. Like the Kobold guides to game
Uh,
design are all about like here's how to do your own world building. Here's how to homebrew a magic system. Here's something about how to structure your next campaign, right? Like that's what the Kobold guides are meant to do is say you can do it at home. You don't need you might get greater satisfaction out of running your own material than you would out of running somebody else's, which kind of undercuts a whole lot of
yeah.
Kobold Press products. But I don't know. I come out of a tradition where people did their own campaigns and they were highly personal creations. So
Yeah, well, that's it's part of the game, right? Some people will, run other people's stuff, and some people will not, and some people will do a mix. I mean, our our personal style is like we buy all this stuff from other people, but ultimately never use most of it. Like
yeah,
99% of it because we just tend to make our own stuff, and it's worse for us than other creators, and I'll tell you why. Because we have this YouTube channel where we talk about making stuff, with the
Yes.
people that play in our games.
Yes.
So then it's like, oh, well, we can't use this now. So we have to make up new stuff for the actual games.
I like running pre-made stuff. Like, I don't know, Steve Winter ran us all through Curse of Strahd last winter. And it was great, right? It's a really well done thing with great characters and good plot and lots of twists and turns. And why wouldn't we run something professional? But then I get my hands on some playtest document and I'm like really excited because it's fresh and new.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe a little of both, right? I don't know about 99%, but I know I wind up buying a lot of stuff I don't use. And then like 20% of it is inspirational in some way. And 5% of it gets used. But
I know, like Storm King's Thunder. I was so
Yeah.
excited when I used the Pixie Dust entry from it. So
Mhm.
and I didn't even use it straight out of the book as is. I still tweaked it. But like that's
what
just
is it about us? We can't run anything straight out of the book.
yeah,
right?
yeah. It's definitely a mood. I am playing in a pre-written adventure for the first time in forever.
Oh,
So El Genio, DM Jazzy Hands, is running Curse of Strahd for us, and before
Okay.
that, James and Arcaso had run the Frozen
Dragon
Sick.
Heist. Oh, Frozen.
So we've been doing like that game. It's not streamed, just we get together with a bunch of friends and play. So that's been pretty fun to do.
Yeah.
But as a DM, and also I'm just lazy as a DM. Like I look at a book, I'm like, oh, I got to read this whole thing, and then, or I could just write down some stuff, and run a game.
Right. Yeah. I do like improv. I like playing off what I see from people at the table, and I find that one good way to pay attention is to have less notes. Right. If I'm consulting more notes, it's like if I have a player's handbook and a monster manual open in front of me, that's already filling a bunch of space. I really got to find like a 3-screen monitor system, put up a bunch of PDFs and just say, okay, guys, I'm not having a DM screen anymore. It's a wall of video.
Yeah.
It's going to be that way anyway.
Well, my setup here is 2 screens, so yeah, a third one would be perfect.
More screens.
Yeah, so you're just encapsulated by screens.
Right.
But you know, like I do. It's not that I don't. So I guess like it's not that I don't write. It's just that I do my writing during the game, right?
Yeah.
You know, so like I will have a little bit to go off of, and then I see where the players go, and I will just take notes then, and then like the next session, like essentially I'm taking the notes for the next session.
Yes. Oh my goodness. If I've got one good villain or one good scene for like a kickoff, then that's enough to start a short game. And if I've got a longer run of like A leads to B leads to C, oh, I'm golden for 3 sessions, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to run this. I'm trying to write it first. We'll see. I'm trying to run a dockside cult thing, but yeah, I have like one good NPC and one good scene, and I don't know where I'm going next. So maybe I'll run it and see what the players suggest.
Yeah, I mean, I find that's very viable and organic, right? They
It's
kind of let you know.
organic. Yes, people feel like they're contributing, or they know that their character actions are driving the plot, and it's better than feeling like my manager at Dungeon Magazine, Barbara Young, used to call it plot coupons. Yeah, it's like if you get coupon A and coupon B and coupon C, if you collect 3 objects, you can turn them in for the next plot point. That's how this adventure works, right? And I'm like, I hate those. I hate having the choke points, and I much prefer the more open sandboxy stuff where people can skip ahead to the later elements. They might have missed things that would help them, but they're not required. So
And I think that's where adventure writing has evolved to.
yeah,
A lot of it, even Wizards of the Coast, like the big adventures they put out are very much like that now.
yes, And sometimes I want a little more structure when I'm reading them.
Yeah.
How am I going to run this? But
Well, a whole cottage industry has sprung up out of that, right? Over on the DM's Guild, where people are writing guides to those particular adventures.
I know. And it's funny because some of the, like Ghosts of Saltmarsh, right? Like Kobold Press did the update for Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and those Saltmarsh pieces are super old school. Like they were published in the late 70s and early 80s for advanced D&D, and so bringing them up to 5th edition without rewriting the plot, they are a little bit linear, but I don't know. There's a lot of dungeon crawling and good exploration in them, so I think they're.
That was originally the was that the U series?
Yes, I think so. Yes, it was.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, that definitely sounds like that's definitely a challenge. So shifting gears a little bit, what's next for Kobold Press?
Well, let's see. At the moment, we're fulfilling one Kickstarter, which is Empire of the Ghouls. So the print books have arrived. It's a giant Underdark adventure, levels 1 to 13, plus a whole setting of Underdark undead, the Empire of the Ghouls, duh, there it is. Plus there's a player's guide with a bunch of underworld races and a layers book with a bunch of drop in anywhere Underdark scenario, like one-shots, basically. So that's going out right now. Then we talked a little bit about Deep Magic. That is shipping in August, and it's juicy. It's awesome. It's it's 20 styles of magic. It's 700 spells. It's something for every class in the game. It's a treasure chest for players, right? Dragon magic's in there, chaos magic's in there, ring magic's in there, battle magic, sort of classic. And then some of the more oddball things like winter magic and alchemancy and, oh yeah, blood magic for the villains. There's a whole... So the editor on this was my old boss, Kim Mohan, who edited Dragon Magazine for many years. And you'll see Kim Mohan's name even now on Wizards of the Coast books. He's still editing and doing great work. And he was the editor on Deep Magic. And he was like, I don't know, all this dark, scary mythos, blood magic, doom stuff. It's not really player character magic, is it? This should all be called out as not for players. Well, it's a big book of spells. Nobody says it's a big book of just player spells. Dungeon masters look at these things too. He's like, some of this stuff is just dark, dark, dark. And so we agreed to put the dark section in the back because it really is mostly villain magic. And if your players are looking for a whole lot of blood sacrifice and doom magic and Cthulhu mythos stuff, you're running a particular kind of campaign. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying most people
They might not be the good guys.
yeah, they might be the baddies.
We were the villains all along.
Yep. And then after that, in terms of a new Kickstarter, we are actually kickstarting the first really big dungeon adventure that Kobold Press has done since forever. Oh my god, when was the last one? Halls of the Mountain King was the last one. This one's called Scarlet Citadel, and it's got beautiful battle maps. It's written by Steve Winter, who is sort of the king of the old school dungeon, as far as I'm concerned. And it is... I can't tell you much about it, but we're kickstarting it sometime in September or October. I'm really excited about it because people do a lot of adventures, and we do a lot of adventures that have a dungeon in it somewhere. But this one is really layer after layer after layer, dungeon, dungeon, dungeon. So a very classic crawl, and we hope people like it. We'll see. See how it kickstarts.
When's the last time you've Kobold Press has done a dungeon crawl?
Well, we did some in Eldritch Lairs, like Mike Shea, Sly Flourish wrote some dungeons. All our Lairs books have dungeon crawls, but they tend to be 1 or 2 levels.
Yeah.
This is like 7 levels of dungeon. right? So it goes pretty deep. You start at first level and you wrap up around 10 or 12. Um,
It's a
yeah.
lot. It's a lot of. That's a lot of dungeon. Can you talk about the premise?
It's too soon.
It's
Steve will
too soon.
kill
All
me.
right.
But yeah, no, I can't say. But we'll be we'll be sharing some of the details with our Warlock patrons. We have a Patreon, right? And so they're going to get the advance word on some of what's going on in the Scarlet Citadel. In fact, the next zine is going to spill some of the lore of the setting and probably some of the crunch. Yeah, there's a really cool set of magic items unique to the dungeon. Anyway, that'll show up on the Kobold Press Patreon, which is called Warlock. And we're also doing a guide to the plains over there. Anyway, I could talk all day about the 16 products we're all heading out, but those are like the hardcovers and the big ones.
Well, you said you brought it up. You want to talk about the Warlock Patreon a little bit.
Sure.
And as always, folks, in the pinned comment below, you can find a bunch of links to
Yes.
Kobold Press and Wolfgang.
Sure. The Patreon is, sort of dark fantasy material for 5th edition. Most of it is set in the house campaign setting, Midgard. But we try to make sure that a chunk of it is always easily adapted and usable in any campaign. So like we had a zine recently about halflings, we had one about dragons, we've had one about the undead, themes that are high fantasy but not super specific. And the one that I want to launch soon is called The Warlock Guide to the Plains, which covers the Midgard cosmology and Yggdrasil the World Tree with this cool diagram and all these weird planar NPCs, and it takes me back to the Planescape times. But we have said we're only releasing it when we have 800 patrons, and we're like 40 or 50 short, so for $1 a month, you could help us get there.
So close, push them over the top.
Yes, please. We do put out, short layer adventures every month and a printed zine. Oh, and we collect all the past ones in these beautiful hardcovers called the Warlock Grimoire, which, is just loaded with crunchy goodness and weird lore. And so that dungeon, the Scarlet Citadel, is going to appear in the July? Yeah, this month. By the end of this month, it will be in the hands of our patrons. Some of the lore and the backstory and early indications about what's going on in that dungeon.
Cool. So people can kind of start getting primed and prepped now by by checking that out.
Oh yeah, we're also doing a Deep Magic kickoff special freebie for Warlock people too. So yeah, we try to hand them all sorts of stuff, art, posters. We did some polls about which PC race people wanted to see next, and the answer was bear folk from the Midgard setting.
Oh, nice.
Well, because dwarves and elves get all the glory, right? But bear folk are freaking cool, so Warlock has done a fair bit of support for that PC race. And they're like, we want a whole zine full of it. All right, give the people what they want.
Yeah.
We want to get to 800 fans, so if you want bear folk, please, this would be the time to sign up. In 6 months, we'll have something.
Score.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong with bear folks. They're cuddly.
They're fun to play. Oh my god, big raging berserker bears. Sign me up.
So, are they large?
They are not, because that creates too many problems for us. But they started as monsters in Tome of Beasts, right? And everybody looked at the art and said, why can't I play that?
Yeah.
And so we said, yeah, why can't you? And they were already written into the Midgard setting as a race that had its own little kingdoms and things in the north. And we expanded on it considerably over the last couple years, but people keep asking for more. So it's probably the most popular race that's unique to Midgard. There's a couple others that are certainly have fans, but
Yeah, so in the chat, there's a cry from Brian for koala bear folk.
not happening. Oh, that sounds like fun, but no.
Yeah, yeah. Are there different variety of bear folk?
There are those that live out on the shadow plane, or sort of the shadow gnars and guardians of the groves and wardens and keepers of light and goodness against the dark. And then there's the more like fetch me my jug of honey berserker. How to describe the Northlands bear folk? They're kind of lazy because they're stronger than everybody, and they can sort of afford to just go send a raiding party to take what they want from the dwarves or the humans. But yeah, small woodland kingdoms. They're not very big. But yeah, those ones are not so much about the guardians and the groves and all that. It's more about let's sit around and drink mead, and taunt the humans for being scrawny.
As you do.
As you do. But some of them are wanderers, and they go out in the world and seek adventure. And then, hey, next thing you know, they wind up in fantasy Egypt saying, why am I so hot? Why do I have so much fur?
Yeah. Although they kind of sound like jerks the way you describe them.
They're a little bit jerks. I don't think they all have to be that way. I'm used to running them as monsters.
Yeah.
And I still haven't had a PC Barefolk warrior in one of my games. I'm like, everybody says they're so popular, but nobody's run them in my campaign, so it can't be true. No, they can be much more noble, paladin-like, ranger-like, druid-like than I'm kind of giving them credit for right now.
Yeah. So Doug wants to know, I wonder what the relationship between Bearfolk and the Honey Queen is.
Ooh. Good question. I think the Honey Queen came first because she came out of the Margrave that was published in 2014, 2013. Yeah, I think the Honey Queen predates Bearfolk in Midgard lore, so we hadn't taken it into account, but it's a great question.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are Bearfolk wandering into the Margrave forest now saying, we've heard.
So I did, it's becoming painfully clear the problem with Bearfolk, though.
Yeah.
Elfbait, Bearfolk, Bard, Bear Necessities. The puns with Bearfolk is going to be
They write
terrible.
Themselves, right?
Yeah.
Terrible, terrible puns. And it's like, well, okay, if your group is cool with that and kind of a sillier group, great. If you're running an uber serious, allow me to sing the Norse Eddas for you kind of bard, then maybe not.
And I don't know, Kobold Press is a very, very serious company.
At all times, we are grim dark to the extreme.
I'm looking at you, Swobold.
It's funny. We try to cater to both, right? Like, we have times when we're totally goofy and we're like, D&D is about having fun, and some of it's dumb fun. And that's okay, right? Like, we don't have to be super serious all the time.
I would not have it any other way. Dumb fun is the best fun.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
But, then we publish something like Empire of the Ghouls. It's like, man, there needs to be comic relief in this thing because it's pretty grim. It's a tough, dark adventure. So there are sections in it that are maybe deliberately a little bit lighter. And players will create their own laughs no matter what.
Elfbait with Bearfolk rogues stealing picnic baskets.
Yes, picnic baskets. I'm sorry, the picnic basket has not been invented in Midgard, so you can't steal what hasn't been invented.
And also, that joke is very dated. I could just imagine the number of folks that just would not understand fascination with picnic baskets.
It's like gamers over 40 only, right?
Yeah. I also saw the call for a koala bowls. Staying on brand.
Oh boy, yeah. I think April comes around once a year. We'll keep all those ideas in mind.
We've done arboreal kobolds.
Oh, really?
And unlike they're like flying squirrels,
right?
Basically, instead of having wings like the Urds, they have skin flaps and they just glide from tree to tree.
Glide. No, that could be Oh, that could be hilarious, actually. Yeah, I think kobolds in particular, because they're numerous and disposable, lend themselves to a lot of I don't know, minion humor.
Yeah.
Stuff gets blown up.
We have them living in like Ewok villages.
Ooh, it gets real dark under the old growth trees. I'm sure the kobolds with their sunlight sensitivity have no problem in the deep dark woods.
Yeah, I think that's what we're thinking as well. We're really dark primordial jungles.
Yes, even better.
Yeah, where the sunlight doesn't really reach all the way to the to the ground. So, or we can even just remove sunlight sensitivity.
Yes. Oh, yeah. They've grown strong on the surface world.
So, but these kobolds probably aren't as good with mechanical things.
No, I mean, come on. Where are you going to get all that iron and copper and tin? You're busy working with woodcrafts and spike traps and Ewok rock slides and
taking on the evil empire. So do you have any beloved kobold characters that you've played?
I have, oddly enough, only played NPC kobolds. I played Goldscale the Paladin a couple of times in Zobek. He is, of course, the noble and righteous kobold who does good deeds. I didn't even write him. Someone else wrote him up for the blog, and he just was too good not to put in. But he's basically Dudley Do-Right at a 3-foot size, right? Like he's prim and proper, and he will keep the law. I think I'm getting bunny ears.
You definitely did get bunny ears.
Where did that come from? There are little kobolds around here. Do that again. Where did it go?
That's great. Like the virtual background just hides everything but the arm.
But the arm. The arm comes out now. It hasn't come back.
Yeah.
Shoot.
It was a drive-by bunny ears.
It was a drive-by bunny ear. Oh, they're back. All right. So yes, it's fun working from home because
things like
you
this.
never know
where the kobolds are gonna come from.
Yeah.
That totally derailed my train of thought.
Yeah, sorry about that.
We're
full of tricks and traps, and one of them is just what? Oh, hey,
I wanted to ask you about AD&D kobolds.
Oh goodness! All right, take me back on a journey through.
I am like the only one on the planet that actually misses the little yippy rat dog people.
I like them. They were cute. I like the new ones better, but yeah, you and Tony DiTerlizzi actually. I think he still draws. When he draws a kobold, he draws a little rat dog kobold.
Yeah, scaly rat. I don't know why that just speaks to me. And they, and they didn't get this noble descendant of dragons history that they, that they have now. No, they were just mischievous, evil little things that adventurers would murder.
Which is probably closer to the original source. Like the German mythology is, they're kind of little goblins who like mining, right?
Yeah,
that's where they come from. And most of the pictures I've seen of them pre-D&D, they kind of look like goblins or dog-faced, round-faced goblins. So you have something there, right? Like the history is on your side.
Yeah, I think we're just in-house going to have to make a new monster and model it after the old kobolds.
Mm-hmm.
But but players do seem to love the new look. I guess. I guess they got a facelift in 3rd edition, maybe?
Yeah, I think it was 3rd edition. Maybe in Sunless Citadel with Meepo?
But in all fairness, the art for those were so good.
It was. And the art has been, steadily really good.
Yeah.
And we've tried to put 1 or 2 kobold variants in every one of our monster books. And the art for some of those has been great. So, yeah, it's the company mascot. So, of course, we're in favor of all kobolds of every kind, everywhere, in vast quantities.
How many kobolds have you guys done so far? I feel like you do like a half a dozen at least in every monster book.
No, it's not as many as that. It feels like that many because we feel like a swarm. But I don't know. We've done maybe 8 variants in 3 monster books. The third one's not even out yet. It won't be out till Christmas, right?
Nice. That's a great
Yeah.
Christmas present.
Oh yeah, Tomo Beast 2. Oh my god, the playtest. It was great, but I don't know how Wizards of the Coast does it. We had like 1,000 playtesters show up, which is probably twice as many as we've had in the past.
Uh,
Um, and that's fantastic because it means a better book, but it also means going through 1,000 playtest reports, right?
yeah.
Um,
Whose
but
job is that?
well, that is once again any award-winning designer, Ben McFarland, who is also our playtest coordinator.
Uh-huh.
Ben's awesome. He has so much experience rounding up and wrangling um, both the documents that need to go out to playtest, because we send people what they ask for. We're like, well, what level's your group? We're going to send you some Tomo Beast 2 monsters for a CR that works with your group. And then you can send us a report back, because that way they're running their actual characters, not something made up for the playtest, right?
Yeah.
And the monsters that are in the most popular challenge ratings are going to get the most testing. But we had people show up like, I've got a 19th level party. What have you got? And we always have something. We don't do a ton at CR 20 plus, but we do some. And the feedback was surprisingly good because those people had played those characters for years, right? And they had, well, it's hard to challenge players with a monster at that level. It's easy to knock one out because you can just give it a ton of hit points and high abilities and, you know, legendary resistances and things, but to make it actually interesting and challenging for a group that well honed, it's got to be a pretty tight design. So yeah, Ben McFarland somehow keeps it all together, and then the editor Megan has to take all the feedback and decide which of it is going to change the way we present the monster in the end. And this is kind of the secret sauce of all of our monster books, is we just play test to pieces. And it's the same reason Wizards of the Coast does it, right? Like, you find stuff in playtest that you wouldn't find just going by the tables and the numbers.
Tome of Beasts, the Fey Lords and Ladies section was great.
Yes.
It was definitely something that was missing, because there, in the official content, there isn't much, higher level Fey creatures. Yet people love with the Feywild and Fey creatures.
Yes, and Kobold Press loves the Fey and the Feywild, right? Like, we've done at least 3 or 4 adventures that are pretty much all Feywild or Fairy Kingdom type stuff. And Dan Dillon wrote those Tome of Beasts, Fey Lords and Ladies, and I think he wrote 1 or 2 of them in Creature Codex too. And he's got more Fey in Tome of Beasts too. Anyway, Dan Dillon is, he's a WotC designer now, but we had him first.
Yeah. I didn't know if that was a sore subject or not. It would be if I was you. That's a loss of great talent to you guys.
Well, that's true, but we can also point to, hey, this is somebody we recognized as genius early.
Yeah.
He did these cool things with us, and he's still very much a friend. I'm having lunch with him sometime next week.
He might actually be a bear folk.
Yeah, I've seen the beard, and I have suspicions, yes.
Well, I was also at Origins where I met Dan in person for the first time. And it's like you talk to everybody online and we're all like this big, right? And then you meet someone in person and he's like giant.
He is, but he's a friendly giant, and super talented. And the stuff he did for the Fey Lords and Ladies, it was built off of some stuff that we had done previously. Oh my God, the Court of the Shadow Fey Lords and Ladies, the Moonlit King and the Queen of Night and Darkness go back to either 3.5 or 4th edition. So part of what I think was great about those designs is they got iterated in multiple editions under multiple rule sets and kept getting better and better and better. And then Dan came along and put a 5th edition spin on it and kind of reinvented them again. And I don't know, I think every time you take a concept like that and hone it like that, sort of organically, and you see what people liked in previous editions and you keep the best bits, um, yeah, that's why it's good. It's just like playtesting. You just cycle on it over and over and over again.
Dave wants to know, I thought you'd never go back to magazines. What got you to do Warlock?
Well, mostly I'm not doing it. Scott Gable.
It's somebody else's problem. Best answer
It
ever.
is, yeah, because I'm the publisher, but Scott Gable's the editor, and he gathers up the stuff and puts it out there. And honestly, as a zine, it takes no advertising, right? Like, there's no ads in it,
Yeah.
which was a huge part of the Kobold Quarterly thing, was just getting enough ad money and subscription money to produce it. And the zine is like, well, if we lose a few patrons, maybe we need to make a smaller book. Or if we gain a few patrons, hey, we're going to do an extra book. We're going to put out Guide to the Plains.
You build a
and
better mousetrap.
Yeah, we build a better mousetrap if we have the money for it, right? Like, it's not meant as, hey, this is a self-sustaining, awesome magazine that reaches everyone in the universe. It's not a general interest thing. It's very specific to people who like dark fantasy. They like Midgard. They're already in tune with like what's really going on in 5th edition and Kobold Press. And it's sort of a deep dive of juicy content, and as opposed to what Kobold Quarterly tried to be, which is, let's put up something that can appear on a magazine rack down at, I don't know, local hobby store or the on-base exchange or wherever.
Makes sense. I mean, it's essentially, it comes down to, it's just a lot easier to do
Yes.
under the patron model, where, like you said, we either make a bigger book or a smaller book depending on the level of support, and people can see exactly why they're getting what they're getting this month.
Right. I mean, we've had a cover by Larry Elmore and we've had a cover by Jeff Easley, like two of my favorite artists from the classic era. So, like, it's a blast just because you get to mess around.
Yeah.
And then, like, the Halflings issue was, like, all about the 3 weird types of Halflings found in Midgard, who are not, like, standard D&D Halflings, but one of them's river folk, and one of them's plains folk, and one of them are court folk, which are basically a servitor race for the elves, right? They're kind of suck-ups. But, butlers. I don't know.
Do they get flack from the other halflings?
I think they do, as being like the snooty house halflings, right? Like,
yeah.
they're the ones who don't go out and earn their own way. They live off the elves.
Parasites.
Parasites. Horrible.
Dave wants to know, does Warlock take submissions?
Not really. We commission stuff from people, although people have pitched us layers. So in addition to the zine full of lore and rules and player stuff, we publish a standalone layer every month. And we've taken submissions for layers. People will pitch us a short adventure, and a couple of those have turned into a thing. It helps a lot if you've already published something somewhere else. Warlock isn't really our entry-level thing. That's the blog where we take submissions for anyone, for anything. Warlock, we invite in a lot of hyper-talented freelancers who are killing it on DM's Guild, or like Zeb Cook has written for us on it, because, the guy who wrote Planescape. All right, yeah, let's get him to do our new planar city, and he wrote up a planar town as part of the 11 Hells issue. So, the 11 Hells issue. That was fun.
Can never have too many Hells. We are up on the hour mark. So, parting words before we head out?
Oh, I just love this hobby, and I love how Kobold Press is chugging along, and appreciate everybody's support out there. We've got big plans. Deep Magic, Empire of the Ghouls, Tome of Beast 2, and our first big dungeon. So, yeah, it's great chatting with you, Dave, and hope to do it again sometime. There's always news from the Kobolds. We're a chatty bunch.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. And Kobold Press is, since the beginning of 5e, has been on our holy trinity of third-party publishers. You guys, Frog God, and Nord put out a lot of great stuff. I mean, there's a lot of other great publishers out there as well. But I would say those are the three that got on our radar the earliest and put out quality products. You can check out the links in the pinned post as well as the description. And with that, until next time,